Please welcome from Comcast, Eric Burton and Dina Dinacci.
All right. I'm surprised this many people are back, considering there's a bar next door, right? So I'm Eric Burton. I'm going to kick it off and then turn it over to Dina here in a few slides, and then I'll get out of her way. So we've got about a half hour, and really what we want to talk a little bit about is just share a little bit about the journey that we've been on and are on at Comcast. Probably just enough to give you a sense for whether or not you actually want to talk to us on a break or lunch as we go through the rest of the day. So, again, hopefully we'll give you a few tidbits that'll be interesting, and then we can catch up certainly more offline. Really enjoyed Laura's presentation this morning for two reasons. One, in a group this size, typically we have customers, so I'm curious how many Comcast customers are out there? All right. First of all, thank you for being customers. If you are in the discuss job moment and want to talk to us offline, please find us on a break. I had this whole plan of I was going to lay $100 bills out, do a little customer reward thing, but when I found out it doesn't really pay to delight and we just need to take care of issues, no more $100 bills. So thank you, Laura, if you're in the room, for saving me about $1,000. But number two, what I loved about Laura's presentation is, to be honest, we could literally just say what she said is really a great summary of how we view this evolution that we're in the really early stages of at Comcast, and how we're thinking about how we need to change the experience. So with that said, I'll talk a little bit more specifically about what that means. And then Dina's going to come up and talk about what went through our minds in the process we use to evaluate different partners. We've only been on eGain at 100% of our chat volume for just about a month or so. So we're definitely on the new end. And so Dina will not only share sort of the process that we went through to make the choice, but some of what we've learned so far. And then probably most important, how we're thinking about eGain in the ecosystem that Ashu talked about at Comcast as we go forward. And again, I know coming to these events, usually what's most valuable is the folks that you get a chance to talk to and compare notes with. And so hopefully we'll give you enough of a primer to tee up some conversations throughout the rest of the conference. And then we'll talk a little bit about, kind of what's next. So actually, do you have the clicker? Mm-hmm. Awesome. So the digital experience at Comcast. So the way that I think I would describe this best is to think about, back to Laura's slide where she had, I think, 6 jobs, and she talked about how, sometimes customers have a situation and they want to discuss it with you. And I think she even used a cable example, right? We all have some sort of television, internet, phone provider, and sometimes it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, typically you will pick up the phone and call most often. Today, oftentimes as well, you may go to chat with an agent, right? But what we're really focused on is how do we take things that historically have required that discuss moment with a customer and move those over into the transaction bucket that Laura talked about. If you think about repair, so your internet service doesn't work, right? In the old days, you'd call, we'd have a few things we could check connections, go through some basic troubleshooting. Ultimately, there wasn't a ton that could be done at the agent level. You roll a truck, hopefully that works, sometimes it doesn't. Today, the amount of information that we have about your service, how well it's been working, the diagnostics coming off all of the devices in your home, we can use all of that information to very accurately, in many cases, predict exactly what needs to happen, right? And today, we can literally tell the agent, don't bother asking any questions, we know we need to send a truck. Or don't ask these 10 questions because we know we need an answer to these 2, and then we can get the customer on their way. So the reason I describe it that way is because fundamentally, that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to move as many of those transactions from that much fuzzier, messier discussion bucket over into the transaction bucket using technology. There are two important pieces to this. One is this big artificial intelligence thing in the middle of the screen that I got up behind me. And again, this is where what Laura was talking about and Ashi was talking about really jive well with how we're thinking about all of this. But our vision, our plan, and what we're working toward is really to put a simple, how can we help you in front of the customer, use artificial intelligence and all of the data that we have to resolve as much as we can without the customer having to actually have a discussion. So, transact that, or execute on that transaction with the customer. And then based on what the issue is, pass the customer through to the channel that makes the most sense. And we heard that several times this morning. Because, again, Laura was right that still today, the lion's share of customers pick up the phone and call. That's not always the best way to resolve things. We actually find in the IVR, for example, that about 35% of the time that we present a digital solution option to a customer in the IVR, they actually take it, use it, and then don't call us back, right? Well, that's just another one of those proof points that reminds us that they may have called, but that's just because that's what they're used to doing. That's not necessarily what they want to do. So again, it's that idea that how can we help you? Put artificial intelligence behind that question, use the data that we've got behind that question, then pass the customer into a channel that makes the most sense. And that's really where eGain comes in for us. Our company, like probably many of yours, is a compilation of acquisitions, of decentralization, of a lot of technology decisions made in one part of the company or another, with a lot, in a vacuum in some cases, because of a relationship in some cases, et cetera, right? Very few of us probably work at a company that's young enough to have a really intentional technology strategy. So at Comcast, as we've gone through this process over the last several years of really looking hard at the experience and treating it as a product, and you heard that again, I think, this morning as well, recognize where we had gaps from a solution standpoint, and have been looking for partners to fill those gaps, but more specifically, how can we fill those gaps in the ecosystem with partners that we think are going to be our best bet at working within that ecosystem, right? And you heard Ashu talk about this. We're a young customer, so our plan is to really put the words to the test, because ultimately, for all of us, right, it's really hard to go in and remove technology from your ecosystem. That's really kind of the last thing you want to have to do. And so again, we've really been looking for partners that, like eGain, that we feel can play an active part and work across the ecosystem, with the Avayas, with your recording platforms, your AI solution. You may buy everything from eGain, you may buy 3 or 4 things from eGain, right? We're all going to be in a different place, but we need them to work together. So, that's really the point of this slide and how I wanted to tee it up. Because again, it's, we're all doing a lot of the same things. For us, I think I would tell you that I would say amen to what Laura said. I think the research, for us, it just validates the path we're on. And we've done a lot of our own research, as I'm sure many of you have. But, I think if we all sort of follow what Laura was talking about this morning, that's going to lead us to a better place. Second, and this slide here is a little bit of motherhood and apple pie. I think it tells us what most of us intuitively know, whether you have data on it or not. But we are definitely seeing an increase in customers using our chat channel. We're seeing an increase in customers using mobile chat. We're seeing a big increase in customers using social media. We've got probably one of the largest social media teams in the world, given just the size of the company and the commitment that we've made to that channel. That channel is super interesting because if you think about how social media has been treated historically from the beginnings, a lot of times it's kind of a group on the side. Nobody's quite sure how to count those transactions. How do you roll that in with the rest of your contact rate and first call resolution and all that sort of stuff? But they're very much a part of this digital ecosystem that we've been talking about. And increasingly, we're all going to have to figure out the best way for that group to work with a chat group. How does messaging and SMS fit into that, right? Can a chat agent really effectively do SMS at the same time, particularly if it's, an ongoing SMS message over the course of a few days, which some customers are fine with that and want to do that, right? And we're going to have to do more of that. So, again, we included this just to reinforce that we're definitely seeing the trends that I'm sure you're seeing, but also to make the point that, and again, this gets back to some of this morning's conversation, I don't think we have a good sense for what customers really, for what we should, which channels we should be using for what as well as we need to. And I think as we start customers with the big question and use the information to decide which channel we want to use to handle certain issues, we're going to see these numbers change again, and they're going to better represent what really works, right, and what really helps resolve the problem. So, again, I'm going to turn it over to Dina to talk more about specifically the eGain piece, but we're really happy to be here. Looking forward to meeting other eGain customers. I think there's great strength in us comparing notes and establishing relationships because ultimately, I'm sure Ashu and the team would agree that we really help drive the agenda for eGain, and hopefully some good things come out of the session today. So look forward to meeting some of you later, and I'm going to turn it over to Dina for the rest of our piece.
Great. Thank you, Eric. So as you heard Lara talking about earlier today, and Ashu, went through his presentation, and what Eric just said, those were all wonderful building blocks for kind of what we're going to go through over the next few minutes with, this journey that we took this year to change out our chat platform. And it was a heavy lift, I'll say that. But we are through the biggest part of it. And as Eric said, we've been up and running for about almost a month at this point. But, when you think about embarking on a journey like that and taking on a project like that, in the context of what we know we want to do and what we need to do as a company and for our customers, we kind of look at it, this is one of these operating model slides that we have, where we have our customers and we know that they are reaching out to us through SMS, through social media, through the phone, obviously still, and they want to share photos in some cases with us or take a video of something and show it to us. And through these platforms and these apps and these channels that we have, whether it's our X1 platform or any number of apps that we have or our website, we want to be able to have these conversations and have these enabling technologies that allow all of those different types of conversations to happen. So, this is, what we've kind of been moving towards for almost the entire year working on this project. And, there's obviously a virtual assistant component to that we're going to be weaving into this, but at the end of the day, obviously, through the virtual assistant, machine learning and the natural language processing, the predictive intent that goes on, when a customer gets to an agent in the digital space, that context gets passed through to the agent, so the agent is avoiding all of those types of frustration points that Lara was talking about with, I had a lot of effort, I had to repeat myself, the agent didn't know what I had been doing, those kinds of things. So that's really kind of, where, what our thinking is. And again, with eGain, looking at what the platform can deliver for us, we made the decision to go with eGain, because it is a comprehensive solution and it has a lot of those, the APIs that are available for easy integration into a lot of the different products and the platforms that we do have. So when we started the beginning of this, at the beginning of the year, we had the big kickoff meeting with eGain, and to just kind of put some additional context around a little bit of the history without going into the details. The chat platform that we have replaced was 15 years old in terms of how long we've had it on our site. Obviously, we had done upgrades and things like that, but when we were looking at, again, what we know we need to do and where we want to go, that platform just could not support any of those efforts. So we started this chat migration project, and we had a number of really high-level goals and key focus areas, and there are a lot behind each one of these, believe me. But obviously, we wanted to improve the capabilities of our chat platform in terms of the integration into other products and channels that we have. Integration to a virtual assistant, an agent, and having those intelligence layers and having that seamless handoff. and better control over the entire chat experience, right? So all of those things the eGain platform delivers, and we have people that are working behind the scenes to add those those capabilities. From an operational standpoint, there were tons of operational efficiencies that we were looking at, trying to streamline everything from internal processes and procedures to the overall management and maintenance of the platform. The platform that we had, because it had been around for so long, you can imagine, as some of you and many of you probably deal with legacy technologies that are in your own companies every day, there's a lot of Frankensteining that goes on, right, over time. So you start, building things onto platforms that, it was never intended to support, and, new use cases pop up, and you just kind of start bolting things on. And then you end up with a platform that becomes very unwieldy and cumbersome to manage and sustain. So there, from that standpoint, we're really looking to, kind of streamline a lot of things, remove processes that we didn't need anymore, and look to the tool to help us, kind of with the management of that. We also had a lot of tracking and reporting that we wanted to kind of move to another level. In terms of both agent and customer experiences, I mean, this is a world of change on both ends, of these chat conversations that we have. From the agent side, we're on version 17, which is a very, very modern UI, and we've got very positive feedback from the agents that take our chats when we were first rolling this out, and a lot of just positive feedback, things like, I can focus on the customer and not the tool. And so it doesn't get in the way. It's really kind of very intuitive for them on how to use it. From the customer side, again, going back to the whole, it was 15 years in the making, and of all of these kind of bolt-ons and add-ons, we had over 12 different chat entry flows for customers on our old platform. And one of the big things that we wanted to do was standardize all of that, right? So there's the standard pop-up window, just like you would see on any other website that has chat, like eGain has with their chat window. And so we wanted to just wipe away all of those legacy flows and have a standard, consistent UX for our customers. From an operational reporting and analytics standpoint, there are a lot of things that come with the platform that eGain offers, and we really are expecting to see big improvements in our average handle time because of all the measurements and being able to manage that in real time. And concurrency, obviously, we look to see improvements there, as well as our CSAT and our FCR scores, because we have that real-time data that's flowing in now that we can have access to and view rather than having delays. So another thing, when we're going through this process, we had some, guiding principles that we started with at the very beginning, and some lessons learned as we were going through the whole process. When we kicked off the whole thing, we said, question everything we're doing. And that's everything from, the architecture, things that we should change, things that we should maybe keep or not. Are there new services that have been built since we architected the chat platform when we first implemented it? And so we were really taking a fresh look at everything, and everything was on the table. And, I encouraged the team and said, think of this as a greenfield, and if we didn't have a chat platform today, how would we do this? Because we really didn't want to get into the whole, well, we've been doing this way for 10 plus years or 15 years, and we should just keep doing it. And I said, no, let's take a new look at this, and said, let's question, think about efficiencies, think about what we should keep, things that we should retire, stop talking about spreadsheets and zip code lookups. Like, there's another way to do this now, and so those are the kinds of things that, it was really kind of like throughout the whole process, don't lift and shift, and it was really kind of wipe the slate clean and let's look at this anew. And really like looking to leverage the out-of-the-box capabilities that come with the platform, because everybody's probably familiar with, oh, we need to customize this, or this doesn't work exactly the way I want it, so I want to build something just for us that does what I want it to do. And so we came across a few of those, obviously, more than a few, And we really kind of put a halt on things in those conversations and said, okay, what is the real end goal here, and what are we trying to solve for? What is the business problem we're trying to solve? And when we really kind of dug in and we're really understanding what the need was, most of the time there was an out-of-the-box solution that was part of the platform, and it just worked in a different way than people had been thinking. And so that was kind of one of the other things that, to kind of streamline the sprint, processes that we went through, to really kind of keep it out of the box as much as possible. And, it'll be easier to manage when, we're through this whole process. We wanted to leverage the expertise around us, both from an eGain, perspective, and obviously they're subject matter experts on the platform and chat and the implementation of it, but also, our internal resources and looking at, do we have the right people with the right skill sets? Can we bring them in when we need to? And looking at what kinds of backgrounds and skill sets do we need? And if we don't have people who have those skill sets, let's go out and bring them in. And that's exactly what we did. We tried as much as we could to, ask for recommendations, because we ran into so many different things where we were like, well, what do we do? Do we go down this path or do we go down this path? And, we would go to eGain and say, this cannot be a unique problem just for us. We know other customers probably have gone through the same thing. So we really wanted to hear their recommendations because they have that experience. A lot of different stakeholders in a big company, as you can imagine, from different parts of the company that you probably didn't even know existed sometimes. And they all have a different type of vested interest in the chat platform and the data that comes from it. So we tried very hard to make sure that we were covering all the bases and making sure we were pulling teams in ahead of time as early as possible in the process to gather their requirements so we could start mapping out all of the sprints, because we're on sprint 15 right now, and and we're still going. But we wanted to make sure that we could capture as much of that as we could ahead of time to properly plan out the whole overall product development process. And for the most part, it worked out really, really well. And we didn't really have any kind of, unexpected things kind of coming out from nowhere, and people raising their hands that, we just didn't know who they were. Like we did a pretty good job, I'll say, of trying to do that as much as possible. And then the other thing is, thinking about the future state. So this kind of goes back to questioning everything, where, there are so many different decisions that you can go through. And again, eGain was a big part of this of, how do we architect this? If we need, to do A, B, and C, obviously there are 100 different ways you could do each of those to accomplish what you want to accomplish. But thinking about operational efficiencies and streamlining processes, and that goes for, where we want to be 12, 18, and 24 months from now, and thinking about the future state and not architecting a certain functionality in a way that is just going to hamstring, our efforts, and we're going to have to go back and just redo everything, 6 or 8 months from now. So that was another thing that we really had top of mind, is really to kind of architect things to set us up for the future. So we didn't build up a lot of technical debt during that process. So, and the other thing is, at the end of this, we're kind of through, the big heavy lift, and I'll say we started this process at the end of March. We had our official kickoff. And in middle to late November is when we finally moved everybody over to the new chat platform. So it was 10 months, 8 months of continuous work, with all the planning and everything that went on in January and February as well. And so, it's been a really wonderful journey in many ways. And it was a great learning experience for all of us, because as a company, we hadn't ever changed out a platform like this before. And, it was a lot of, legacy kind of, cleanup to go on in a number of areas. But this, we really took this opportunity to kind of wipe the slate clean in a lot of ways and say, okay, let's set ourselves up for the future and, get a modern technology in that enables us to, again, go and do all these other things that we know we want to do with, product integrations, platform integrations, and these emerging digital interactions to be able to support them in the best way possible. So, looking at next year, obviously there's a lot of work that we still need to do. There's, some post-migration efforts going on, with the overall, journey that we've been on. But just to kind of name a couple of different things over the coming months that we're working and talking with eGain about. One of them is a proof of concept with chat automation, with a particular use case around username password resets. Looking at extending our SMS chat across the enterprise with our Xfinity mobile team, and Jerry here is with our mobile team, in looking at SMS chat, and with our IVR, extending SMS to chat in our IVR as a call deflection tool, and recognizing customers on a mobile device and offering up an SMS chat. And then also looking to extend eGain into our Xfinity app ecosystem. We have a lot of different apps. We have a lot of different lines of business. We have 5 different lines of business, all with associated apps. And there are a lot of different settings and toggles and on-off switches and all kinds of things that you can do with all these different apps, and on our website as well, in support of all of these different lines of business that customers have. And so that's really kind of where we're going to be going with eGain, and obviously looking to partner with them to make this come to fruition. So that's all I have for now, and I thank you and appreciate the time, and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.